Hello, everyone, and welcome to another off-schedule Code Remix Weekly. I'm your regular host, Sam, here without my other regular host, Tim, as this is not the regularly scheduled time because we have a guest who we'll be talking to very shortly who could not make the usual time. And Tim, I think completely understandably, did not want to cut into his bouldering plans on a Friday evening for a live stream. So Tim's out sweating it out on a rock slope, getting fit, getting high up on that wall, and we're here to talk about the latest in news from Modern and Open Rewrite, and then meet our guest. So the Code Remix Summit is coming up in only I didn't count the days ahead of time, 17 days, something like that. Very soon. You should get your tickets if you haven't already. There are still discount codes available, although the pricing, we had a discounted block of hotel rooms for the conference. Those are all gone. So if you haven't yet booked your accommodation, you may have to do that at full price. And then we've had an open rewrite release, a lot of exciting things in this one, a lot of great open source contributors from around the community, not just from within Modern. But I will call out as one I'm particularly excited about because I'd worked on this in the past. Where'd it go? Yeah, so Tim has taken efforts to create a recipe that goes through all of the tests and extracts out examples from the tests into documentation. So I don't know if it's actually live in our documents yet, but if it isn't, you'll start to see examples of what a recipe will do in the recipe documentation. And I believe we're already talking about how to integrate that into the SAS UI. So look forward to it being a little bit easier to understand what a recipe does, not only from its description, but from actually seeing an example of what code it will change into what other code. We only have about 30 minutes today, so let's get right on to our guest today, Javiera or Javi Laso, who is a speaker who will be at the Code Remix Summit, giving, I think, what will be a very interesting discussion about architecting a secure, scalable, and cost-effective health system. And I am so interested to talk to her because she has such a background that crosses domains, not only in software, but also into biotech. So welcome to the program, Javi. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm very good. It's Friday, so very
I
excited.
know it's great. We got nice blue skies outside. I'm going to be going to see Swan Lake performed at the ballet later this evening. And before you think that I'm the kind of cultured person who goes to ballet all the time, this will be my first time going in years and years and years. So I'm looking forward to seeing it again.
It's a classic, so yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I remember it's that Swan Lake has that extra aspect of historical significance of having been the play that was just looping on TV when the Soviet Union fell. So it is kind of also a byword for a regime change in a certain way. So and we're gonna see it performed by a Ukrainian ballet company. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it should be very interesting. Do you have any
Yeah.
fun plans for the weekend?
So I swim in the lake, so I'm planning hopefully go
Nice,
back to that tomorrow morning. And here in
nice.
Orlando, it's very nice, so we'll see.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That sounds great. That sounds great. Yeah, gorgeous weather. Do you like to go kayaking or other activities on the water?
Currently, I'm just swimming. I do open waters and like team swimming, but maybe paddling this summer will be interesting.
Right on, right on. Yeah, I sometimes visit family in Tampa, and we like to go out on the local lakes and rivers. And a recent visit, we actually were out, on the coast. A dolphin came up and looked right at me from under the water, kind of cocking its head so that it could, check me out on top of the kayak, and then swam alongside us for almost a mile. That was really fantastic. So I hope you have some fun aquatic encounters when you're out there swimming. That sounds great.
Yeah, pretty cool. I'll take your notes on where you went because that's cheaper than go to SeaWorld and swim with the dolphins. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll see if I can find the exact location for you. Yeah. So your presentation at the Code Remix Summit is all about architecting a secure, scalable, and cost-effective health system. And I am just interested to hear a little bit about your background. How did you get to being in the position of architecting secure, scalable, and cost-effective healthcare systems?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I started as a biotechnology engineer, but my journey to IT was a little bit during the university and maybe even before that when I
Hmm.
was very little. I don't know if you remember Microsoft front page, but
Yeah.
dad was obsessed with us to learn about that because he said like, okay, you need to learn how to make websites, and I was like, this is so lame, but my website is so pretty. So then at university I was like, no, I want to be a biomedical biotechnology engineer, and I really love it. But also during the IT classes I was like, I really enjoyed this. I can like prepare my experiments. I can optimize, not use too many resources, and I became also the teacher assistants for that. So I really enjoy, and that was how my journey started with IT. Then
Hmm.
after when I finished college, and if I used a lot of software to process my thesis, I worked with a lot of stuff that I learned in the University of Rhode Island too. And then in the real world, I was like, well, biotech and science in general doesn't have much feel, but but software does. And I started as a QA, and after starting as a QA I learned so much about systems, and I decided like, okay, I want to become a developer. And that's where I joined Thoughtworks, and I started working with a lot of clients, seeing their modernizations, these big enterprises, and growing. I'm a nerd too, so I read a lot, and I started like, okay, maybe I can help with this architecture. Let's do an assessment and stuff like that. So the whole journey, I think, started as out of curiosity, and
Yeah.
now is allowing me to share my knowledge with you all, and also to help clients to improve their systems.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, a lot of that journey resonates with me. I also started off learning programming by making websites in high school. Initially, my motivation was to display artwork, as I thought that would just be more fun to make my own website to display drawings and paintings than to use a MySpace or whatever. So yeah, I learned PHP to get started with that. That was kind of the first language that stuck for me. And then yeah, I share your interest in the biomedical field, even though I've never had the opportunity to work in it myself. In high school, I was fortunate enough to have a biotech teacher who was a guy who had worked in industry for many years, and then decided that he wanted to teach in his latter years, and he taught us a class that was all about DNA replication and the nature of proteins, and we was having us do stuff with the centrifuges and culture molds, and we talked a lot about how cancer works, or in the body's various defenses against cancer, cellular suicide, apoptosis, the P56 gene I'm barely remembering that is related to that, which is good knowledge for everyone to have and just utterly fascinating. So, if not for accidents of history, one prospective employer getting back to me sooner than the other, I might have easily followed you into working in medicine and biotechnology. So that's really cool. So one thing I'm curious about from your background is how your does your experience as a biotech engineer, are you, is that able to inform what you do with the architecture for these health services companies now?
Well, yeah, I work with different clients. Our projects are always different, and like doing healthcare and doing a modernization for other systems doesn't vary as much. But
Mhm.
what it does is like the problem we're trying to solve, the customer that is going to use this solution and stuff like that. But having this background helps me a little bit to empathize too, and like,
Yeah,
okay, maybe and maybe make me biased too. Like, hey, we haven't
of
talked
course.
about this, so yeah.
Yeah, particularly if you're coming from whether you're working on QA or on architecture and design of the system, thinking about the edge cases, how it might fail, the uncommon but still common enough that you have to consider them things, will save you a lot of trouble down the line. I've often found that that's one of the big differences between like a senior engineer and someone who isn't so senior might not necessarily be like coding knowledge, but just having that volume of experience to be like, this is going to be a problem later. If we, of these two choices that on their face look quite similar, this one will give us reasons to regret it, not tomorrow, not the next day, but like a couple years down the line. So
Yeah.
yeah, that definitely resonates with me.
I
Uh,
agree. I wish
yeah,
also developers do more like QA work before start coding, especially in the junior years, because it
yeah,
gives you a different mentality on how to approach problems. And as we're also using a lot of TDD currently, like this is what we how we want to do things, it helps you. I've seen a lot of devs, even like senior ones, when we try to implement TDD, very hard because this mindset is hard.
hmm yeah, I agree. I find it difficult to code without tests. I don't know if I would describe myself as a test-driven developer, but if I look at my behavior, it often does start with creating the test that I want to pass for a recipe or for some piece of open rewrite logic. And then I like to, particularly when you're working with a complex data structure, whether it's an LST or some representation of some biomedical or biomechanical concept, if the when the data that you're working with is complex, it can be really nice to see it in the debugger rather than trying to think, okay, what is likely to be in this field or in that map. Just to actually have it in front of you helps a lot. That's really cool. So, tell me about how domain-driven design plays into this. I feel like that's kind of what we're kind of circling around is how the domain you work in influences the design of the code.
Yeah, so the main idea is precisely that. Like, I know that we usually try to have these silos where developers said, like, oh, we need to do this, and this is how it's working. And then the business people also says, like, you know what, I don't care what's happening in the background. I just want to get my money. So
Yeah.
this approach of domain during design, the main idea is to bring those two words together and start talking. Like, let's have a common language, the domain as the problem that we're gonna solve, and also, okay, can we compartmentalize these problems into sub contexts that then are gonna be translated into services or some kind of architecture for the developers to implement or to architect and modernize or just create a new model in our system. So domain driven design gives you this patterns. It's not necessarily like, oh, you need to implement hexagonal architecture from now on. It's more like, okay, let's understand the business before we put the first line of code. And that's why this workshop is like, okay, what are the activities that we can do before starting to code when we approach a problem of a company like this healthcare system that needs to be modernized? Why is it just because we want to modernize? Because that's sometimes the reason that the clients give us, like, you know what, this system has been running for 20 years and we wanted to modernize. Is it failing? Because if it's not failing, maybe you
Maybe don't
don't.
mess with it. There's a lot of COBOL in the world that is out there chugging away, doing its job, and if you don't have a pressing reason to retire it, a full rewrite into a new, not only a new language, but a new everything, very expensive and quite possibly failure prone.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of greenfield projects, so brownfield in the middle, I think that's the better approach for that. So the main idea is in here is that, like, okay, you are gonna become an architect for this session. Okay, let's think about trade-offs. Let's think about the strategy. Let's think about the people that we need. Like, do we have
Yeah.
enough resources to start, and what are our constraints? So when you approach to problems that are similar to this, you can say, oh, I heard someone talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I'd love to hear more about all of that, and I will at Code Remix. Hopefully, I'll be able to attend your session and see the full thing. I mean, I'm supposed to be there for the hack track the whole time, but I'm sure I'll be able to duck out from that from time to time to see a few talks. Can you give some examples or like a story of how this process has played out for you before? What some of the challenges were, how like DDD helped. Yeah, I'd love to. What you're talking about is very interesting. I'd love to hear a few more specifics.
Yeah, of course, of course. For example, one company that we were trying to start, they had this whole systems written Perl. Uh, it was very interesting because they didn't have enough people that knew the language, but they needed to extend some modules. And also, the observability was not really there. You can tell that people knew their system because it was like they just feel it.
Yeah.
I know that you always can find those places and those services when you just go and feel like, okay, something's gonna fail today, but there's no way that you can predict it. So what we did in that case was like, okay, let's find together the people, the influential people, the domain experts, which can be business people, infrastructure people, architects, developers. Like, let's run this session about, for example, about event storming, where we're gonna identify what are the domain events that we are seeing in the whole system. Okay, let's zoom in this domain services in this small bounded context, and from here, let's prioritize what we need to modernize right now. So you can do a matrix when you can say, okay, has a lot of value, this less value, this is more effort or less effort, and there you can say, okay, the domain driven design is like, okay, from here we can define also the aggregates, the data objects, and everyone will have a clear understanding and a ubiquitous language. After the meeting, the main idea is to also understand what is a transaction. If I'm talking on a transaction in a hospital, a transaction can be something else. Or if I need to book a room for a hotel and for a hospital, they can be similar but not really. A room in a hospital could be a shared room or individual room, or a transaction could be the transaction of give medication to a patient or where the patient pays. So this shared knowledge or ubiquitous language is super important to discover. And domain driven design gives you some guides then how to do it. So and when you go to clients and you start applying this kind of patterns, of course you're not gonna say, "Oh, I'm certified at domain driven design organization," but you can take some of these patterns and apply it. We usually what we do is like, "Okay, now you discover this. We can help you to modernize this part right now, and then you
Mhm.
can decide what to do next. We can help you to create a roadmap." And that's what we do. We deliver, and then it's like, okay, now that we delivered this part, let's bring people from your company. Let's start sharing context. Let's start keep developing, and then we leave, and you can maintain your system.
All right. So if I was to distill that down into a few bullet points, a step-by-step guide for taking a legacy system and modernizing it, what I'm kind of hearing was instrumented for observability so that you can kind of see how it's operating currently, if it isn't already. Understand the data it works with and the data structures that it works with, understand how that data changes or flows through the systems that support it, and then gather the right people from across the business, the both the stakeholders and the experts, is so that you can have the right quorum to make decisions and to proceed. And I feel like there was that I've lost a lot of the nuance there. But am I on the right track?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I'll just add that there is this data structure that are core aggregates where the
Mhm.
business rule lives, and those are the ones who are translated into the code later on. So it's like everybody's been heard, even if they don't speak code language.
Yeah, that's interesting. I once had a friend and a mentor who asked me at one point, and I could obviously tell it was a trick question going into it. He's like, "What's the most popular programming language in the world? Like, what's the most widely used programming language?" And I'm like, "JavaScript, probably." And he's like, "Wrong. Microsoft Excel." Like, 100 million businesses, run all of their business logic and their domain on Excel spreadsheets. And so the company he worked for was one that was essentially like a headless, like how to run the calculations, the transformations in an Excel spreadsheet without having Excel there and actually having to be clicking on things. You're like, okay, like you got your business working the way you like it. You don't want to have to actually open up the spreadsheet and click the buttons anymore. Like, let's take that and turn that into a real production system. And what you were saying had echoes of that, of right, of like get the knowledge where it is, get and particularly the domain knowledge, the business knowledge, and be sure that is informing the design and behavior of your system. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Oh, it looks like we have a question coming in. We use transition architects to scale monoliths to microservice systems using DDD modules for each domain. How do you think about it? This question kind of sounds like, what is your whole presentation that you're going to give at Code Remake Summit?
Kind of, I know, right? So I will set first, like, what are they defining DDD models for? Because the main idea of DDD is their practices. It's not like a technical pattern. Maybe if
Hmm.
he's referring to, oh,
It's
we
a
use,
people pattern, a process pattern.
yeah, yeah. If we are talking about technical patterns, like, oh, you use hexagonal architecture, well, I like it. It's very decoupled. You have your ports and services, and you can change things very easily. We did that with one of our clients. We were using Postgres, and we migrate to Firebase, and it was super easy. It was a few hours of refactoring and configuration, but that pattern helped us a lot, and we had the all the use cases, and we had a domain-driven design approach in that tactical pattern.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Well, Diego, I hope you were going to come to Javi's session so that you can hear in more detail about it there. Yeah. So that I've sometimes seen, just speaking of microservices, maybe triggered isn't maybe the right word, but kind of got me thinking that for a while there, it very much felt like microservices were an end unto themselves, right? Like they were the hot new industry trend for how you architect your software, and people would try to adopt a microservice based architecture for its own sake. And I heard one observer say that the problem that they were trying to solve was the fact that they didn't work at a FANG company and wanted to be like they wanted the software they worked on to feel more cutting edge, more engaging to them as engineers, rather than necessarily to like use microservice based architecture to actually solve like a problem that the product itself had. I wonder if you have ever seen that, maybe not that specific thing, but people trying to solve the wrong problems. I feel like so much of what you're talking about is how do you get not necessarily the software right, but the people around the software right. Get
Mhm.
people aligned towards what needs to happen. Yeah, how, how do you drive consensus? How do you get people to work together productively in these situations when they're coming from all of these different backgrounds?
Yeah, so that's an interesting challenge. And someone at some point said to me, like, you're going to software, so you won't interact with people anymore. And
Not how that works.
no, if that was the true, and we just talk with machines all day, I don't know. I don't know if that will be better or not, but it's a lot. I'm a consultant, so what I need, that's my work. I need to make sure that we understand each other. So we need to try to go. So first of all, they hire us because they have a problem. So you need to go to the people telling them, like, this is the problem that I want to solve. What do you think about this? Is this a problem for you? And start from there. Like, we want them to communicate to each other, and they usually said, like, I don't understand developers, they are super technical, they never go into my level. And you're like, okay, let me be your translator for now. Like, you don't need to know why this variable is going to go there, or why this endpoint is hitting somewhere else, because we don't want to hit no one. And I understand.
Yeah, no hitting.
I remember that phrase. Like, I remember someone said, "But don't hit no one." And I was like, "Okay, don't
Don't hit
worry
the
about
server. Be nice to the server.
it." Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think having this conversation and put them in the room together gives them
Yeah.
also the approach of, like, we're humans. Like,
Mhm.
okay, this is our job, and we want the best out of this session, and what we need to do is have a clear goal. Okay, what's the clear goal for this session is to get around with our language and our domain events defined. As long as you have a clear goal for your meetings, for your
Yeah.
whole strategy, is much more, the people will engage faster. Like, don't
Yeah.
overload with meetings, especially
Yeah.
now that we are
We've all
remote.
hated showing up to meetings that have 30 people on it and no agenda sent out ahead of time. Like, what are we coming here for? And if there's no agenda sent out ahead of time, almost invariably the answer that was what we're coming here for is something that could have been an email. Someone needs to get up and talk about something they think it's important for everyone to know. And yeah, setting
Yeah.
an objective for your meeting, crucial piece of advice.
Definitely, definitely. And even when I love remote work, sometimes you need to go. You need to go and meet up with the people and have these conversations,
Yeah.
because this asynchronous communication is not very well. You're texting with someone, and one message come and one message go back, but sometimes these discussions aren't as natural.
Yeah.
We have improved a lot, but
Yeah.
there are some things that needs to be discussed, and you don't need 30 people sometimes, but you do need a bunch of people with the right knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so Diego in the comments mentions organizing workshops for understanding the goals. This sounds like it's talking to kind of something you were saying earlier about clarifying up front. Wait, what are the goals for this modernization? What are you really trying to achieve by doing this before we just get in there and start rooting around and fiddling with the guts of the system? What is it we're trying to do here? Do you have any advice for how to for clarifying goals? Maybe when you, like you say, you might sometimes you're bringing together software people and business people who might have very different ideas of what the goals of a system change are, might not be speaking the same language. How do you help people from a whole variety of backgrounds and different sets of domain knowledge to mutually understand and agree on what the goals are for some kind of complex systems transformation?
Hmm. So I think a lot it's related to a little bit of experience, but also having not being in the company itself. As
Mm,
I'm going from the
yeah,
outside, I'm not biased to one or the other. So I can hear both sides and say, okay, you do have like some points in common.
hmm,
Let me translate this to you. Is the this word, is this the same that you are thinking of or isn't? So I think that part, that's why I think consultants are important also,
hmm.
or not even consultants as like
You
hire
just need an outside perspective.
exactly someone that is when they change this VP of engineering, when they change these CTOs, all the time they bring new ideas because they're
Yeah,
right, they're brand new. And
got to put their stamp on it.
yes, yes. And sometimes for us it's annoying. It's like, oh no, again, new ideas. But some others, it's very good.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking of yeah what you were dwelling on an answer to a previous question where you're talking about how people saying to you when you were going into software that you wouldn't be talking to people, that you would just be talking to machines. And I've whenever I've been talking to someone who's in school or considering the career track, every now and then someone's like, I want to go into software because then I'll get to talk to machines and not people. And I'm like, really, really not how it works. Like I've seen people like that in the industry. And it's just like that puts a really low ceiling on your career, because if that's what you're about, like then you need like you can't get anything done that takes more than one person, right? Like you always need to be able to sell your ideas to your colleagues, to management, to the stakeholders, if you want to drive consensus and get anything big done. You got to get people on your side. There aren't that many things that can be just a one person show. Yeah, so let's see. I am quickly running up on a hard stop before I have to go to my next meeting. Wish we could spend another 30 minutes chatting about this. Glad we will be able to at the Code Remix Summit very soon. Do you have any maybe parting thoughts, Javi?
Parting thoughts. I will say, like, join us in the
Yeah,
code.
yeah, absolutely. Join us. That's a good one.
Uh, yes, and if you are looking to become an architect, just start reading, start talking with your systems experts. Don't just wait for them to go to you, but bring
Yeah,
them ideas too.
yeah, yeah. Bring them solutions. Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm sorry we couldn't take longer, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks so much, Javi.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Bye.
Join us in Miami for Code Remix Summit. Attend hands-on sessions with some of the best industry experts. Looking for immediate ROI by attending? Bring a relevant business case and work directly on solutions affecting your organization in the hack track. Bring your problem, bring your laptop, and walk away with work done for your boss. Register today for Code Remix Summit.